What happened?
We talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie, and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. So like and subscribe and check us out. And that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank The Coverage in 2023. and that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank The Coverage in 2023. We talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. So like and subscribe and check us out.
It's time for the old time happy hour. Pick up your step and smile a while. Time to sing along with friends of ours.
All right.
We got your name.
How you doing, intern Noe, pro Noe, whatever you're going by now? How's it going, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
Oh, doing well as we are on our 8th happy hour. I think we – oh, wait, hang on.
Here we go. Buck, here we go.
Always, dude.
Here we
have
go. Here we go. Here we go.
So this is tonight on our 8th happy hour. By the way, I'm Terry Bennett. That's intern Noe. This is OutDrank The Coverage, brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions, Manscaped, and more. We'll get into all that here in a little bit. But what we do is, it started out as every other Monday, but we basically have been going a month, every Monday right now because there's so much stuff, which we're happy with. But I think that this is legitimately the very first happy hour that we get to do what we really, really wanted to do when we started this happy hour. And that's just to talk about whatever. I mean, there's some sports stuff that are major and some came today. We found out who the Cowboys are playing to begin things. Little shocked, I will admit that, but we'll talk about that. But we're just going to have fun tonight. But before we do that, as we're always want to do, intern Noe/pro, how are you doing? And what are you drinking?
I'm doing well. Today I'm drinking Jester King Easy Peel. It's a Saison, aka sour beer. Last year I went to Wurstfest in Fredericksburg, and on the way back stopped at Jester King Brewery. Spotted the bottle, picked it up. Usually stuff like this, you want to drink it a year or two down the road. So drinking it today. It's pretty cool. It's same process like other sour beers, but then it's re-fermented with mangoes. So it kind of gives it more of a fruitier. It kind of numbs or dulls the sourness, which for a lot of people that want to break into sour beers, that's kind of a good thing.
Why would anybody want sour beer? I'm sorry.
I didn't like sour beers until about 3 years ago. And then now it's like something it's very I savor it. I'd say that. But yeah, it's good. I like it. Just sipping on it right now. How about you, buddy? How are you, and what are you drinking?
I am doing well, and I am. What am I always drinking? Good Night Loving vodka. My fiance will now not allow me. So Friday we go to the liquor store. She works really hard Monday through Friday, and so Friday she loves to watch True Blood and do shots and just kind of laugh at that show. If you've never watched it, it's a real fun show if you like, horror and things like that. But we go to the liquor store, and I'm like, hey, just give me some Taka. She's like, no, we're going to be married, and you will not drink that in front of me again. So it's Good Night Loving, which I love. This is my favorite, more expensive vodka right now. We've talked about many times on the air and off the air. This is where Tito's was for me about 10 years ago.
when Tito's got real big. It's in that great price point. It's not out of it yet. But anyway, other than that, I'm doing well. We got a lot to talk about before we even get to the show. It won't be Friday, of course, when it airs, but you and I Friday will be getting together for our May OutDrank The Coverage is a look back. Now, we still aren't doing a movie when I know we started Bad Movies and a Drink, and we haven't done a new one yet. Again, we had two things. First, the copyright got us so bad. That's why we're going to Patreon. We actually have Patreon right now, and you'll hear more about it. But Patreon right now, it's not the biggest. We're going to build into that. But here is our Patreon if you want to know that. We're going to build into the Patreon. We're going to do some stuff in season that will only be on Patreon and stuff. But the copyright, and then when we recorded one of the honorable mention one in the 70s, we kind of messed up the first time, so we had to re-record that. So we have to double up on those this month. But in June, we go back to look backs and then a movie. We haven't decided. It's either going to be Point Break or Any Given Sunday. We do know August will be Playmakers. Excuse me. I keep saying Players. The ESPN NFL show that took off the air. We finally found it on YouTube. I'm about to have somebody come knock on my door while I'm talking. Watch.
Do you have a delivery?
No, it's a salesperson. I can see her through the window. But anyway, she's not that ugly though. I will say. Maybe I will let her sell me some. Wait, my fiance's listening. Never mind. Go away. I'm spoken for. Good Christian woman. But anyway, so we're going to do that in August. But yeah, so we'll be there Friday. We'll probably release the Green Bay one next week and then the San Francisco one, spoiling it right there, in 2 weeks. But other than that, so what's been going on sports-wise?
Well, playoffs.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of stuff I need to get on this board that are ready to go as soon as we talk that I can just hit, because we say that enough anyway. Oh, by the way, Ryan Fox will be joining us around 7:30 to do the Rangers show this week. He had some technical issues, and so he's doing the Ranger show kind of inside this show for this week. Next week was supposed to be our first baseball look back, but it got pushed because Wednesday, the NFL schedule comes out. And we really want to talk about that next Monday. Now, in saying that, we've had a couple already kind of start to leak out, which you always do. The schedule comes out on the 15th. We found out the Cowboys play the Browns, apparently. That they've done that a couple times. I remember in 91, they opened in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And then I can't remember, with one of the Romo years, they either opened with Cleveland or like in week 2 went to Cleveland. It was
a week 2. They came here. It was
no. There was one that was out in Cleveland a few years ago that Dallas just when Cleveland was at their worst.
It might have been 20. It would have been 2016 then.
Yes, because that's when I was hanging out with the Cleveland guys that I know so well, and we were all talking. That was when they were at their worst.
That was a blow. I think it was like 35
There's
to 7.
Another one in there I'm thinking of too, though. That was
2020. The Browns made the playoffs, and that was the year Odell Beckham was on there. He did that reversal, and then I was over here criticizing DeMarcus Lawrence. He's just not who he used to be. He definitely lost a step.
No,
I think my issue was he wasn't giving effort.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
That was the game where we realized 100% how bad the Dallas defense was going to be that year. Yeah. They had just came back from Atlanta, which they really shouldn't have won that game. They really should have started out 1-3.
That was the game I went to.
Yeah, that was the game you went to, and they really should have started out 0-3. And then they lost to Cleveland, and then of course beat the Giants, but that got hurt, and that was the season.
Yeah.
Here we go. The Browns, by the way, just a little quick. The Browns are one of the few teams that have played the Cowboys a lot and actually have a winning record. They're 16-13 versus the Cowboys.
They kind of owned the Cowboys in the late 60s.
Yes, very much.
After Lombardi left, everybody thought the Cowboys were going to finally break through, and then 68, 69, they just ran into Cleveland. Yeah, I mean, this is a long rivalry.
Sorry, I think I'm looking at it. I think this might, for some reason, this is weird. Okay, I don't think that's the record, because for some reason that stops at odd times. There's so many different little databases now. It's 18-14. Actually, Cleveland has won. Wanted to get that right. They have actually won. Like, let's see. See, again, why are all these things messed up on the dates? Why can't you just give it to me in alphabetical order? Yeah, 2016, Dallas beat them 35-10. 2012, Cleveland beat Dallas in overtime. I barely remember that. 2008, that's the one I was thinking about. Dallas beat the Browns 28-10, and that was in week 2 of the season. Oh no, it was week 1. It was week 1, and that's when Marion Barber had a touchdown early. Tony Romo threw for 320 yards. Derek Anderson was the quarterback for Cleveland. He goes 11 for 24. Does have a touchdown, but anyway. So that's one of the games. Of course, we found out that the Ravens and the Chiefs are going to play to open things Thursday night. What do you think about that one?
I would have preferred Chiefs and 49ers, but this is kind of good, though, because you get to see the AFC Championship matchup.
Why Chiefs and 49ers?
I like Super Bowl rematches. I think
I agree. I agree.
Especially with the 17th game, they don't have to follow the formula that the NFL schedule has had since 2002 for the 32 games or for the 32 teams. So with this opportunity, we can have a one game where it doesn't really matter who the team is, or it doesn't fit into a formula. You can just pick a team. So this is a case where you can have Chiefs and 49ers. But this will be a great game. I'm kind of curious to see how Baltimore is going to look with year 2 under Todd Monken and all the losses they've had on the defensive side. And they lost 2 of their running backs as well. So it'll be good. Will they turn into a more pass-heavy offense, or will they just still be the same team but more experienced and even more dangerous in this offense?
I feel like they dropped an opportunity. I like what they did last year. And by the way, if they were to do where every Thursday night to open the season was the Super Bowl rematch, I would have no problem with that either. But what I thought they did last year really well. And now the problem with this is if you pick wrong, it could be a bad game, but you don't really know that in week 1 anyway. But I like them having the Super Bowl champ kind of play an upstart team that everybody had buzz about.
Like the Lions last season?
Like the Lions last year. And I know probably because they played the Texans, I think 2 years ago on the season opener, the Chiefs. Man, Chiefs versus Texans, that just seems like you could have – I mean, I know you can parlay this one into it's your AFC Championship rematch. You're probably going to see it in the playoffs. But with Houston, that you could do that as well. And you're getting the football world to get eyes on a team that I still think a lot of people don't know enough about. And that's exactly how it was with Detroit last year. And look what Detroit did. They sprung from that, even though they did lose week 2. People forget about that. They did lose week 2, but their season that was just such a great start for them. And so I kind of like that they did that. I kind of wish they'd have gone back to that.
Yeah, that would have been good. I mean, speaking of the Texans, that would have been a good option this year, but they actually did that in 2020 during the COVID year.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's probably why they didn't want to do it again, just simply because they had done it before. But who cares? Dallas versus the Giants. This is, I'm actually really surprised that Dallas isn't the Sunday night game, and not just against Dallas or against the Giants. I'm just, I'm really surprised. I don't think that's a bad thing. But I will say this: we pretty much are going to do a live stream for the first Sunday of football for sure now, because everybody loved us living and dying with every play with the Chargers last year. I will dare to say that unless something really changes, Cowboys might be the underdog by 10 points going into this game.
That very well could be the case. Cleveland, they don't have Joe Flacco, but they have a healthy Deshaun Watson. They got a pretty solid team. Nick Chubb will be back. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the receiver positions, but Cleveland, they went to the playoffs last year. I think they'll be back again this year. They just need to stay healthy. I think that's the only thing that's really separating them from making the playoffs to going on a deep playoff run. So it'll definitely be a good game. And I think if it's on Fox, I'm guessing we'll have the first official regular season game with Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady as the number 1 duo for Fox. So
Yeah, it's that's actually that's why Adam Schefter kind of broke that. I think the NFL wanted and Fox wanted that to leak out. That's the cool thing, and that's one of the reasons, by the way, why we decided not to do a live schedule show, because a lot of it leaks out before Wednesday anyway, and it gives us a chance to kind of sit back and look at all the schedules. And you and I, we love lists, and I love the top 5 games for 2020. You know, all those that'll come out. You know, and the Eagles and Cowboys will be on there, and it's going to be interesting with it being like I say, with Cleveland and Cleveland, at least as of right now, is a bad matchup for Dallas. Yes, I know, new defensive coordinator, all that. Speaking of the old defensive coordinator, I don't know what he's doing, but we'll talk about him here in a little while. But I'm going to admit something, Noe. I'm not buying into it. I'm still going to be Major League 2 Randy Quaid, but I will admit I'm a little interested just to see what Dallas is going to do with everything that they haven't done in the offseason. Now, I still think they're going to pick up a running back. Dude, you look at Carolina. There's 2 running backs that probably don't make that roster that I would not hate if Dallas had. I would not hate a Chuba Hubbard as Dallas. The issue is you need a speed guy. And unfortunately, unless you're going to try for Kareem Hunt, I don't know of anybody out there that's really available, at least that we know of, that will fill that role.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, we got Rico Dowdle, Royce Freeman, and Ezekiel Elliott. None of those guys are home run hitters. Solid running backs, but yeah, you definitely need that Tony Pollard type player, if you mind me saying that. Yeah, Chuba Hubbard would fit that role. I mean, right now with the Panthers, they got their 2nd round pick, Jonathan Brooks from UT, Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, and then now they just signed Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny could very well be released and be available. He can be a home run hitter.
He's somebody I was really kind of hoping they would sign low key. I've always liked him. I think he did everything Seattle asked him to. I just think Seattle was just in that weird transition, with him, and he kind of got caught into that. You and I have talked about it. Pittsburgh has not picked up Najee Harris's 5th year. If you're going to trade a 4th round for Trey Lance last year, which I'm going to say this, that's one of those that at the time I'm like, oh, that's not a big deal. But now when you realize like what they traded or what they got for like Amari Cooper, and they gave up a 4th round, it's just, again, Dallas just does some weird things at weird times that I don't know. I do feel that at times Jerry is still kind of trying to be too cute with things like that.
They've had some success, like Lyle Collins.
Great point.
Yeah, Lyle Collins was a 1st round pick.
Yeah, but they called 911 and said he murdered somebody. That's the only reason they picked him up. So Noe and I's big conspiracy. If you don't remember, Lyle Collins was a top 10 pick, maybe a top 5 pick. Great at LSU. Was a great guard. I get it. He wanted money, but I really think if he'd have stayed at guard, Lyle Collins might have been a Hall of Fame type guy. But anyway, so about a week before the draft, it comes out that, like his ex-girlfriend sadly got murdered, and it leaked, and I don't think Dallas did it, but somebody in the NFL teams leaked that Collins was a suspect when he wasn't. Like the cops literally just wanted to do the normal, like, hey, you know her, you used to be with her. Do you have any idea what happened? And he did not only fell out of the 1st round, but completely fell out of the draft.
Yeah, and the Cowboys picked him up, and it was a great steal. I mean, he had some few good years here. I think getting injured kind of derailed some of his, prime years. But, I mean, overall, it was a good deal for the Cowboys. He ended up being a pretty solid right tackle. So, and then going back to Rashad Penny, I was going to say the thing that killed him was he got injured mid-season, and then Kenneth Walker stepped in and played great as a rookie. So that kind of just spelled doom for Rashad Penny at the Seahawks.
You're right on that.
But so like it's happened before where you and I would just question, okay, why is it like Randy Moss? He shouldn't have fell the way he fell. Minnesota was happy.
Yeah, and everybody wants to point at Dallas and the Greg Ellis, but Dallas isn't the only one. And that's fine that Randy Moss, okay, so Randy Moss says, from that moment on, I decided I was going to beat Dallas. I would always play well against Dallas. Dude, he's saying that to whoever they'd have been playing in that first playoff game. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't, do all that, but I think that gets overplayed. And I still contend that era, that moment of the Dallas Cowboys, Randy Moss would not have been a star. Randy Moss would have ended up with Michael Irvin in a hotel room. Just saying. I got
I'm
you on
not.
that one.
I'm not sure what you're implying there.
I don't think he was a good fit at that time for Dallas. I think Greg Ellis was the perfect fit at that time for Dallas.
And he played. Greg Ellis had a long career. He played as a defensive end and a linebacker. Was succeeded at both positions. Very underrated player. I think just because of the nature of the '98 draft, he won't be as appreciated as he should have been. But yeah, he was a very solid pick for the Cowboys. I am glad the Cowboys got him.
Oh yeah, I am too. And again, he's in that list of the, as we talked about, I think on the Giants top 5 rivals. That he was right in the middle of the shoulda, woulda, coulda era.
You know who's regretting their drafting is the Chiefs getting Rashee Rice.
Hey, dude, Jesus Christ, man! Like, I from everything I've read, he seems to be a decent guy. And the speeding down 75 in Lamborghinis looks bad. But my God, dude, if you're 20, any of us 20, and we're giving keys to a Lamborghini, I'm not doing 3-point parking. I mean, I'm not saying that the wreck was right. I'm just saying that's that kind of crap you chalk up to just being young, rich. And as Gary Busey says in Point Break, and believe me, we will play this multiple times because one of my favorite things when you're young, dumb, and full of cum. But then Rashee Rice in a Dallas nightclub, Pat, last weekend decides, and I get it. I know he's probably getting annoyed with all the attention, but man, rule 1, once you get in trouble in the spotlight, stay out of trouble. And he gets into it with a photographer, apparently slaps the camera down. One of those things that if the car stuff hadn't happened, nobody would probably say anything. In fact, most people would probably be like, oh, I don't blame you, dude. The media gets in your face. But now the Chiefs, I mean, you've got Xavier Worthy. Is there a chance Rice gets cut, please?
Well, they also traded for Hollywood Brown, too. So they.
Okay, so is there a chance that him and Hollywood Brown get cut? I'm kidding. Brown's an OU guy. Good receiver. Not great, good receiver. But, I mean, and if he were to be cut, how long would it take for Rice to be signed? I'd say about 3 seconds.
Yeah. Someone's going to sign him, let him sit for however long he's going to get suspended, and he'll get suspended. Man, he'll learn his lesson. I'm almost positive he'll stay with the Chiefs.
I was just about to say Chiefs won't cut him. That's not Andy Reid's thing.
Yeah.
Like, look at what, and I'm not saying he would do the exact same, but look at all the crap T.O. was giving them at one point, and they were still trying to keep him. And Rice is talented. And again, I do chalk even both of them up to just, you're probably young, you have more money than you've ever had in your life, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it is interesting to see because we might be entering an era with Andy Reid where he's like, I've only got a few more years. I'm not going to, I don't want to deal with this kind of crap. We'll see. They've been really quiet about it, and they always are, which I actually respect that about them. They don't really like to, express what they're doing when a player's a problem. And let's remember, what are we, 12 years ago from a Kansas City Chief killing himself in the parking lot of Kansas City? Look at the image.
Belcher?
Yeah, Belcher, I think it was. Look where the image was, because that wasn't the only thing happening in Kansas City at that time. They were having some other issues. Oh, and they sucked. They sucked really, really bad. And so, look at where they're at now to where – I'll just put it to you this way. How many articles would we already have about Dallas being a problem with their culture and all that if Rice was on the Cowboys doing these things?
Is infinite a number? Because I think we can't quantify, because it would be all day, every day.
Stupid, ridiculous.
Yeah. That guy would have to just basically disappear from social media.
That's actually a really good point. But with the Chiefs, everybody's like, oh, it's Andy. He'll take care of him. I want to go back to the schedule thing. I want to ask you a question. This is why we really wanted to do this show, folks. We're just having so much fun getting to bounce back. Do you think year 2 of ESPN with Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, do you think they continue to kind of shift the great games, not completely away from Sunday night? Sunday night ain't ever going anywhere, but I do think Aikman and Buck lends, and also they were putting them more on ABC as well, which was the whole thing that NFL was frustrated back 10 years ago when ESPN took Monday night off of ABC, and the NFL told them, okay, if you do that, you're getting crappy matchups. Well, now they're back on ABC half the time, but more importantly, they start at 7:00, and you've got Aikman and Buck. Do you think their schedule continues to get beefier? Because I think it does.
Yeah, it's a great broadcasting duo. They deserve to have the best matchup. So yeah, I could definitely see games at the beginning of this season. I don't think we're ready to flex games to Monday night, but I think right now we're going to start top two games of each week as of right now are going to be Sunday night and Monday night. And I think right now Monday night's closing that gap with Sunday night. They might have even broke even. So I could definitely see more of a shift toward that. And I could also see more of a shift for ESPN games being on ABC. They're the same company. Might as well just put them on there to get max viewers. I'm not really sure. I never looked into the reason why Disney moved the Monday night games from ABC to ESPN, but
because it was losing just numbers. That was, and it was actually longer than 10 years ago. It just at that point you had more and more options to watch stuff, and the Monday night games weren't that great. You had traditional powers like Dallas and Washington, neither being good at the same time. So that game wasn't as much, all that kind of crap. I don't think it was the right decision, but it's the decision they made.
Yeah. So, yeah, with better talent, better quality, things will change. And I think this will be one of them. I don't think it's going to be completely ABC this season, but it might be more than 50%. That's very possible just with people. So it was so positive, the reaction, like the Peyton Eli show in 2022 was the talk of the town. And then Troy and Joe go to ESPN and they got bumped. They're not as popular as they were 2 years ago. And it was very quick. Now, people still go and watch Peyton and Eli do the Monday night show, but you get better quality Monday. I mean, it was a point where they were just having Jason Witten be lead color on Monday Night Football. Give him a toupee of some sort or color his hair. Or I don't know what they did with his hair. He definitely looks weird.
So weird, dude. That made no sense. Like, just let him be Jason Witten. Don't spray paint his hair and all that. And you and I both, when it got announced that that's what he was doing, I remember us like, why? Like, Romo was a 50-50. I wasn't sure Romo was going to be as good as he was because I don't think people understand that Romo wasn't real big talkative in the media. I don't think Romo ever had a radio show. He never had a TV show. I don't ever remember him just like jumping on to go on the ticket or anything like that. And so it never, like, it was curious if he was going to be able to be good. Jason Witten, dude, we all do. He sucked.
I guess because he was more talkative than Romo and he had that Southern charm, he would parlay that and it would fit well into prime time. It did. I just don't think he was comfortable. I think Witten could still do it. I just think he should have started somewhere else. I don't think he should have just immediately started as number one. But with Tony Romo, with Tony Romo being successful on CBS with Nance, it was just, like if he, I don't know if Witten needed a better play-by-play person. I forgot who it was. I might have been Tessitore, but
no, it wasn't, dude. It was nobody. It was nobody's issue except for he sucked. I'm sorry. Nothing against him. It looks like he's a really good coach. Like, well, he's at a Christian school and you can recruit. And anyway, well, I mean, I coached in it. You can recruit, and if you don't think there's a D1 guy playing for Rowlett who's 2-8 and he can go over to Argyle Christian and not only get college recruits but also win because they won a state championship this year, you can, and that's fine. I mean, it's I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying you don't get, in my opinion, you don't get the true test of how good a coach is by coaching high school Christians football in the TAPS in Texas, because you can just do so much with that. But anyway, where do you want to go now? You lead for a while. I've been running this horse.
Oh, okay. Am I getting promoted?
Maybe the pro.
So I was just going to go through some of the recent transactions in the NFL. Odell Beckham, he signed a 1-year deal with the Dolphins. Last year, he signed a 1-year, $16 million deal with the Ravens. And then this year, he was a little bit more than half of that deal. He got $8.25 million from the Dolphins. So it's a nice little pairing. I don't know how Mike McDaniel's going to distribute the ball between Jalen Waddle and Tyreek and Odell, but I think that's one of those that's just a good problem to have.
I think this was a move that was mainly done, and I mean this in a good way, mainly done because they know that Hill and Waddle tend to be injured a few games. And so, because I don't really think you're using, and I'm not saying he can't go out of the slot because he did with the Rams. And let's not forget, folks, Odell Beckham Jr. was on his way to possibly being a Super Bowl MVP in that Super Bowl until he hurt his knee. Like, he was opening up the top of that offense for the Rams, and he was on his way to a huge, huge day, in my opinion. And I still think there's something left for him. I don't think the Ravens, and this isn't a knock on Lamar Jackson. I like Lamar Jackson. Do not get me wrong. But he's not the type of wide receiver Lamar Jackson. Odell Beckham needs to do. It's the same thing I talk about with you with Michael Gallup.
Yeah.
Michael Gallup needs an Aaron Rodgers type of quarterback that's willing to throw into really tight spaces because Michael Gallup doesn't get separation. He didn't get separation before his knee injury. What Michael Gallup does well is go up and get the ball. And so you need a quarterback that's willing to gamble. Same thing with Lamar Jackson and Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham needs the quarterbacks who are not afraid to throw into tight windows.
Well, I'm glad Michael Gallup has Gardner Minshew to be able to.
He's going to throw into tight windows, good or bad.
Tyler Boyd goes to the Titans, another good. He's following his old Bengals offensive coordinator, Callahan, to the Titans, the new head coach.
I do not understand what the Titans are doing, dude. They're doing the worst thing. Well, I'll say this. As a fan, it's awesome because they're not a great team, yet they're willing to try to kind of bring in some people to make them not be terrible, but still not be great. But we're not in an era where teams do that anymore. Usually teams are either great, rebuilding, or just absolute terrible, waiting to rebuild. The Titans are doing that in-between thing, which I personally love, but I don't get the move as far as helping them be a better team.
Would you think it would have been a better idea for them to just tear it down completely and start over?
Yes, 100%.
Because go ahead.
I just don't know if Will Levis is going to be the guy. And so, like, why are you putting people around him that might not be there in a couple of years, wide receiver wise? Like, I'd rather you just have drafted and build through, that way and work with them. And then you can kind of see where everybody's going as far as who's developing and stuff.
Like, I'm looking at this team, man, and it looks on paper like a playoff team. Funny enough. They love Levis's arm. He has a cannon of an arm.
I'm sorry. What?
Let me tell you the starting offense, and I'll let you decide. Okay. Will Levis, Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears at running back, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd are your top three receivers, with Treylon Burks as the fourth. He was their number one draft pick receiver a couple years ago. Chigoziem Okonkwo, the tight end, that's really good, but they don't get it to him consistently. And then they got J.C. Latham, who they drafted this year at left tackle, Peter Skoronski at guard, Lloyd Cushenberry, who they got from the Broncos at center. It's a pretty solid offensive line. They got Tavondre Sweat, I don't know why I can't pronounce his name, at nose tackle. And they got Sebastian Joseph Day backing him up. So that's a pretty solid defensive line with Jeffrey Simmons, one of the best linemen in football.
Yeah.
Harold Landry. Yeah, Harold Landry and Kenneth Murray Jr. at linebacker. You got also Arden Key, they got from the 49ers. L'Jarius Sneed from the Chiefs, that awesome Chiefs defense from last season. So I really think they have pieces there. I'm not sure if – and they got Awuzie as well. So, God.
So what's going to happen is – the Titans are going to lose their chance to make the playoffs when Awuzie defends really well, but gives up three amazing catches. I will admit it, him and Byron Jones, two of the guys that just had the worst luck at being in really good spots and just can't, for whatever reason, can't make a play on the ball.
Yeah. I mean, Byron Jones retired now, but yeah, he was one of those guys that great positioning. always was there. He was blanketing the receiver, but the receiver somehow just made the catch.
Just always made the catch. It felt like, and I like Awuzie. All jokes aside, and again, I'm not saying any of that is wrong, but when and I guess we're making it a big assumption. I'm assuming Houston continues their develop. I'm assuming Jacksonville figures out that step back. I still think a lot of that was Lawrence being hurt. I don't think people really understand how bad his shoulder was. That's the whole reason they made the trade in the offseason for a better backup, because that they literally, nothing against CJ Beathard, but he basically Babe Laufenberg'd it for him. And Laufenberg only did it for 2 games in 91 for Dallas. Beathard played 4 and then played in 2 others, and he just wasn't that good. And then you've got the Colts. And if Anthony Richardson comes back and he's healthy. So I honestly think the biggest issue for the Titans is that window where they were the only great team in that division is gone. Whoops, dropped my phone. That window's gone. And I don't think they've kept up with the Texans. And now that's, again, all of that is on the assumption that the Texans make that next step. And I'm not saying they won't, but how many times have we seen a team do that one year and then they just never can? I still feel that with the Lions too. By the way, they made a big move today.
They did. They made Jared Goff their Pro Bowl quarterback, the highest paid player in Lions history. 4 years, $212 million extension. Crazy money. But he's a guy that deserves it. He was a really good player. For the Rams, made it to the Super Bowl there, went to the NFC title game with the Lions last season. One of their best seasons ever. Probably their best season since Bobby Lane left.
Yeah.
One would say.
Yeah, it was their first playoff win in 30 years. Their first time, I don't know, in forever, or since they won a championship that they won. I guess in 91 they won 2 playoff. Did they?
No, yeah, they were the 2 seed and beat Dallas in the divisional round.
Yeah, so they had a bye. So, yeah, I think this might be the first time since the Bobby Lane that they even won 2 playoff games in the same year.
Yep.
And you can make the case probably should have won that NFC title game.
Yeah, it was just a second half collapse by Detroit. A couple of questionable calls on some of their 4th down attempts, but overall, San Francisco just came back and was all she wrote. But yeah, they improved their defense. So we'll just see what happens in 2024. Everything else looks pretty good. It's really hard for me to find a hole right now. I kind of just want to see what all the additions the Lions have made to the defense, specifically the secondary, how that translates into on-the-field success. I would have probably went more defensive line because I think Aiden Hutchinson needs a complement for pass rushing, but they went secondary. Highlighted by Carlton Davis III. So we'll see what happens.
Well, and you also, I think, you still have to see how they handle having a target on their back. They're not the hapless Detroit Lions. They are a team that when they come into your home, your team's gonna be fired up about this year. In baseball, I think a lot of the Rangers this year are learning that. They go into Colorado and get swept. And a lot of it's the Rangers are beat up. But I also think for the first time since 2011, and maybe 2012, and, when the Rangers come to town, people take notice. I always like to read the visiting or the opponent's papers the week of. And so just, Colorado was like the World Series champs are here, the World Series, and so Detroit, that means something. We talk about that all the time in Dallas. That's why winning in Dallas as a football team is different than winning in Detroit as of now. But as Detroit keeps winning, that pressure will come on. And so we'll have to see how they handle that. And their defense still was ass last year. I'm sorry. I do not. And I like Aaron Glenn, Texan, Aggie. I think he's a solid coach. But this whole, he's the next hot trend as a head coach, I don't get it. I don't see anything in Detroit defensively that he's done that makes me think, oh, yeah, that's the guy that's going to lead a program.
Well, he's a guy that's well-liked by his players, and he's given the excuse of, oh, well, he didn't have the right talent there.
Good point.
Now he's going to have the talent. Now there'll be more pressure on him because he's going to have to deliver. It's okay being a player-friendly coach, but if you're not producing on the field, then I'm sorry, but this is a results-oriented league. They spent so much time trying to manage a cap getting rid of young player or getting rid of older players, even though they kind of need them just to get under the cap so they can sign some project guy that may or may not develop or be anywhere close to the guy they just had to release because he just cost too much.
Yeah.
So they can't be worrying about coaching quality.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And again, it's just different when you're expected to win.
Now I'm gonna let Ryan, when he comes on, discuss more of the sweep and why the Rangers got swept this weekend. But I will say it's kind of funny. In baseball, we had the Rockies and Rangers. In hockey, currently, the Avalanche are playing the Stars.
Yep.
In basketball, there's a very distinct possibility that the Nuggets and Mavericks might play in the next round.
Yep. It's a good point. It's funny how sports tends to work that way. Back where you get, you'll run into the same teams in different sports. And let's make the point. I love it. I love where Dallas Stars are. As I wear my Stars hat. But my God, I hope that first game collapse does not come back to bite them. Now, I will say this. I've been impressed that for like 75% of the actual game time, the Dallas Stars have led. They are a better team right now than Colorado, but that doesn't matter in playoffs, and that especially doesn't matter in hockey playoffs. Like, I will say this. Fully healthy, I still think Las Vegas was the best team in the West. Mark Stone didn't get back in time to get really into game shape, all that kind of stuff. And we can talk about all the cap and all that. But, hockey, it's not always about the best team, dude. It's who survives.
And this is one of those weird years where there's really been no upsets. If you look at the final 8 teams right now, they're 1 or 2 seeds. Colorado's the exception. They were a 3 seed because they upset Winnipeg.
Well, and again, the NHL Central, or not West Central, whatever it's called, what Dallas is in, that was I never have known, like the NHL divisions are always, I miss it back when they were names of like the Campbell and all that.
It is the Central Division.
I can't remember. But you look at that, and those 3, that's historical that those 3 teams at the top. And almost any other year, that third place team probably would have been the 1 seed. I don't like the way the NHL playoffs are done. I don't like this whole where you basically play inside your own division for the most part, outside of the first round, as long as you're the 1 seed and then you get to crossover. I really wish that they would go more to a traditional playoff structure. I know they claim they wanted to do it to help with rivalries, regional rivalries, but like LA and Edmonton, that's not a regional rivalry. They're like 30 hours away from each other. Dallas and Colorado, yeah, that's a good regional rivalry, but like Dallas and Winnipeg, man, there's no connection. Like there's nothing. I don't ever think, ooh, Winnipeg. All I ever think with Winnipeg is I love their jerseys. I love it when they wear the jet. I think that's the coolest look and one of the coolest looks in hockey. But anyway, point is hockey, man, anything can happen. Who wins it? It's not always about who's the best team.
Yeah, and last few years it was kind of like that. I mean, if you go back to 2006, Edmonton Oilers coming out of the lockout, 8 seed, make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, play Carolina. Chris Pronger is like carrying the Edmonton Oilers on his back. They somehow get to a Game 7. It wasn't enough, but I mean, it proves that any team in hockey, like the Panthers last season, they were the 8th seed. They made it to the finals. 2012.
Weren't they also kind of in that where they? And again, this is hockey, so they're not the only one. I mean, they weren't what I'd call a traditional 8th seed. Would you?
What are we talking about?
Last year.
Oh, yeah, they were. I think they were a 1 or 2 seed last season, or the 2 years ago, and then they kind of just got injured and
they started late. As far as in fact, they had the best second half of the season, if I'm not mistaken. I think like amazing, like 65% winning or something.
Yeah, I think the Tkachuk trade kind of put a bullseye on them, and there was a little bit of pressure early on in the season to compete and be successful.
Good point.
And then which kind of leads into what you were saying. They had the run in the second half to make it to the playoffs. But yeah, right now they look really good. They're about to eliminate Boston, and that'd be a slight upset, even though they're the 1 seed. Yeah, man. It's
There's
it's pretty.
always, I'm sorry, Boston right now, you can almost look at every 5-year clip in the NHL. There's always one team that'll make the playoffs all 5 years, be a high seed for 3 of the 5, yet can never quite get out of the second round, whether it be, well, like Toronto. I think Toronto just keeps, again, this is why I have a problem with how the playoffs are in hockey. They keep getting Boston. And
They
that's not
just
fun
fired
to
their
me.
head coach Sheldon Keefe, and it mainly because of postseason failures. They were one and done in the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years. They made it out one of those years, but they got eliminated in the second round. They have a good enough team to where they can compete, but they're in a really tough division. A couple years ago, it was Tampa, Boston, and Toronto, but now Tampa's starting to get a little old. Now it's being replaced by sorry, Carolina, or not Carolina,
You okay, buddy?
Florida. No, I'm drinking beer tonight. That's the problem.
Oh, that's right. You don't usually drink beer on the
Yeah,
show. You getting gassy-assy?
yeah, a little bit.
Hockey, nobody ever talks about this. You and I have. But hockey, man, that's one of those sports where, like, I mean, and I'm not talking about like if you're the Blue Jackets or, somebody that's like really rebuilding, but like the Canadians. The Canadians finished in last place in the Atlantic Division. They were 30-36 and 16 overtime losses. I mean, that's the last place in your division, and that's what makes hockey so amazing. Like when you look a few years ago when the Stars, like in 2016 is when Ruff was there and they had the really fun offense. They got them in St. Louis, epic playoffs. St. Louis just won. In fact, that happened twice to the Stars in 4 years.
Yeah, the Game 7 was a big blowout. I remember that.
Yeah, well, now in one of the games, the Game 7 where the Blues won the Cup, that was a great game. Like I think they beat Dallas.
2019. Okay.
Yeah, I think they beat
that was a great series.
Yeah, that was. But point is so Dallas for those years didn't make the playoffs for a few of those years, and still were hitting 95 points, which that used to be 95 points. You're a second seed and comfortable. Hockey, nobody talks about that with hockey. Hockey is so balanced from top to bottom that unless you're just completely rebuilding like the Blue Jackets or the Sabres have for 400 years, but even the Sabres were 39-37 this year. And so that's the thing. I think one of the things that's always got me into hockey more over the last 10 years is there's not a lot of gimme wins each and every week.
There's not. And you can make a good point, right? I think with the salary cap that got instituted almost 20 years ago now, it's kind of leveled the playing field. There's not many it's not really a top heavy league where it's, 10 or 12 great teams, and then everybody else is just scrambling for the number one pick in next year's draft. It's very kind of blended. Like the number one team and the number 25 team could be separated by 20 points. It's very competitive right now as Terry's promoting out Manscaped.
Yeah, just real quick, Manscaped, use our code ODTC. You get 20% off and you get free shipping. Just go online to manscaped.com. Ryan has all the stuff. They still haven't sent it over here to us. So we can't really talk about like individual product. I've used it. So what I can talk about, I like. But Ryan's been using all the different stuff that they send him, and he really likes it. And honestly, it helps us. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, this helps us keep doing what we're doing and stuff. So, and it's Father's Day, great time to give I don't know if you want to give your father a ball shaver, but hey, if that's y'all's relationship. Speaking of intern Noe, pro Noe, whatever you want to call yourself, he met the old Sam Elliott Bennett. You could tell in mine and my dad's relationship that we would happily give each other a ball shaver for a gift, just as a fun joke. But yeah, it's a great Father's Day gift. If you for your boyfriend, your husband, whatever. Dalen asked, is the new rookie, meaning Connor Bedard, he's talking hockey, is he really worth the hype? I think so.
So Chicago, yeah, he is worth the hype. Chicago is in the position. They're not the team that they were, 2017, 2018 when they were competing for the one seed.
They're a dynasty.
They were a dynasty from 2009 to about 2017, 2018. They won 3 cups. They made it to several playoffs. But they had Jonathan Taves, a very healthy Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, Sharp, and one of the best defensive players that could play 30 minutes in a hockey game, that's unheard of, and Duncan Keith. And they had steady goaltending as well. It was just a very well constructed team. It's just the money and age kind of did them in, so they had kind of to start from scratch. They're going to have one of the top picks next season. They got Connor Bedard. They're in really good shape. I think they're going to. Yeah, I think you'll hear from them again in the next couple of years.
Yeah, he was hurt this year, so I don't think the Blackhawks made the step forward that they were going to be. I do think he's going to be really good. I do think, though, that the NHL and baseball right now are kind of overhyping every young phenom. And I get it. You're trying to sell the game. And I think Connor Bedard is going to be a really good player. I don't know if he's going to be anywhere near an Austin Matthews, that type. That'll be the question. Or Connor McDavid.
And Dalen in the comments makes another good point. Yes, drawing attention to the sport. 2 words, Caitlin Clark. You and I have been talking about WNBA.
She's not real good in hockey, dude. I mean, she might be. Oh, you're talking. No, but that's my point, though. Hold that thought, because I know where you're going, and I agree. But I'm saying I feel like with Bedard, they've already done that with McDavid and with Austin Matthews and stuff, and it just feels like every year now there's oh my God, it's the next phenomenon. And I'm not saying he won't be. I think he will be. But yeah, the superlatives and stuff. But what were you about to say about Caitlin Clark? I know where you're going with this.
Think of the wonders she's been doing for the WNBA, and she hasn't even played one regular season game yet. And just women's basketball and really just women's sports in general. Just more opportunities, more eyes on the sport. It's nothing but good. Like, you need these stars that have a personality.
Yep.
Baseball and hockey, the culture doesn't allow for that kind of personality. Like Sean Avery,
great point.
He was a hothead. He only played well with the Rangers, but he was a hothead that would have been great personality wise, just to bring more eyes to the sport of hockey. But he wasn't a big time star. He did create some drama, but he only played well for one team. Like, he didn't just play for the Rangers, he played for others, including the Dallas Stars.
Well, and I thought when Dallas got him, it felt like, and this is why I always tell people, when you think you're there, until you do it, you're not. Because I was like, man, this Dallas team is ready. That's what they needed. They needed that guy who's willing to fight, who digs into the corner, all that. And then he just came here, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to Major League 2. He was David Parkman. If you know Major League 2, the beginning of the movie, they signed this high-priced catcher and David Keith, great character. And he just doesn't want to be in Cleveland. He's there for the money. It was obvious really early that Sean Avery was only in Dallas for the money.
I mean, think about Lamar Odom when he came to the Mavericks. Like, there's all these guys that come and they don't.
That's a one in itself right there. At least he had an excuse. I think Lamar Odom was 5 months into a crack addiction at that point. And he's even admitted, like, I totally screwed the Dallas fans and organization.
I used to love his play because he was so versatile. He was versatile, fast, tall, could do everything that was asked of him. And he came here and did none of it. And I was just so pissed.
Aaron Jackson Hendon asked, I should just call him Aaron, if Marchand is out indefinitely, is Boston done? I think Boston's done either way. I think, I like Montgomery. I hate that he had his issues here in Dallas. And I don't necessarily think it's necessarily his fault. I just think Boston is built for the regular season. And hey, wait, we have a team that kind of seems to have that issue in another sport we won't talk about. But no, I think that's a lot of their problems. I think a lot of their problems is they don't have those guys and Martian is one of them, but they're not one of those guys enough guys that go deep into the corner, that are willing to get bloody. Again, playoff hockey and regular season hockey are completely two different things. And so I think that's I just don't think Boston advances even if he's back or not. Dalen said every sport has a rookie stud right now. Bedard, Wemby, Clark, Stroud. I mean, every sport almost always has a rookie stud, it feels like. I'm not sure about Wemby for San Antonio. I guess all the numbers say that he's great, but they were terrible. And I know one guy can't fix things, but as I like to say, in basketball, that's the one sport where one guy can at least tilt things. And I don't know, has maybe San Antonio just lost it? Like maybe it's time for
No,
changes.
they have the number 4 pick in this year's draft. He was the rookie of the year, one of the best defensive players in the NBA. They just don't have anybody else. They traded away a lot of their talent for
right.
draft picks. So I wouldn't say I think he is a great piece. I think they're going to make a huge jump in year 2 with him, depending on what they do with that number 4 pick. But yeah, I really think they're in good shape. I think speaking of NBA, the Hawks got the number 1 overall pick. I'm not sure if that's going to be enticing to keep Trae Young, but it's the Rockets. They have the number 3 pick, and they were a team that won 41 games last season.
So you keep bringing up Young. So I think you and I see this different. You're seeing it like you are wondering if Young will stay, and from everything I'm seeing, Atlanta's like, we don't know if we want Young to stay. Like there are talks of like trades, or I don't know where he is on his contract. Like I don't think it's Young's decision. I think it's Atlanta's decision, and I think they're right to wonder because, I mean, he's not been bad, and in fact, there was that year 2 when they made the playoffs and Dallas, or last year was, or whatever.
Well, in 21 they made it to the conference finals.
Yeah, that's what it was, and everybody's like, oh, they're maybe they did make the right decision, and then I don't know if he's taken a step back. Atlanta's one of those teams that, man, when you look over their last 10 years, they should have done a lot more than they did with the teams that they had and the regular season success they had, at least in the early 20 teens.
Yeah, I remember when they had Budenholzer with the Hawks. They had that 20-game winning streak, number 1 overall seed, made it to the conference championship, just got swept by, I think it was the Heat or the Cavs, whoever LeBron was on that year.
Whichever one it was.
Yeah, and now he's going to be the new Suns coach. They just fired Frank Vogel.
LeBron James is?
Mike Budenholzer.
And I like him, by the way. I think Atlanta gave up too soon on him.
Yeah, I think so, and so did Milwaukee. Milwaukee was they were winning close to 60 games every year with him, but they would have the postseason failures. Aside from the 21 team that made it to the NBA Finals and beat the Suns, this is he's a really good coach, very defensive oriented. I think he's going to bring some defense to the Suns. I'm not sure how that's going to affect Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, but they're going to be more defensive focused. And so they might make some more deals. I'm not sure what that means for Bradley Beal, but I like the move. I like him as a head coach. I just don't know what the personnel is going to look like next season with him as head coach, because he's a defensive coach.
Well, in the NBA right now, it's the sport is different than it ever has been. This is a player-controlled league, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just making that's where it's at. And so you have these teams that 5 years ago, you let it ride if you're the Suns because you still got a pretty solid cast. And you go, okay, hey, yeah, we didn't make it in the first, we didn't make it out of the first round this year, but 2 years ago we were playing in the NBA Finals. We have a lot of that back. And you would just build on that. And now it's like, no, we can't risk a player losing. That's why Milwaukee keeps doing what they're doing. They don't want to lose Greek the Freak. They're afraid that, and he is wisely never quite 100% committed long-term to them because he's afraid that they're going to be like, oh, like Dallas was with Dirk and be like, oh, hey, we won our championship. We're good. I still think that's going to be the most. Okay, what's more frustrating? Dallas Cowboys 96 to 2000 or Dallas Mavs 2012 to 2019?
Oh, man.
Good one, isn't it?
I would say I'd say the Cowboys. Like the Mavericks, they didn't really do anything after they won this championship to suggest that they were going to be title contenders, maybe playoff contenders. The Cowboys, 96 to, was he at 2000?
Yeah, I said 2. Yeah, just that's a good,
Yeah, I mean, 96, one of the best defenses in football. they missed Michael Irvin for 5 games. That basically decided their playoff success. You know, they could have been a 2 seed, maybe even a 1 seed if Michael Irvin had played those 5 games. 97, I mean, just kind of, it was just, they were not good. Because they had Troy Aikman and Irvin and Smith, they were able to get 6 wins. But that was a team that was finally depleted through the salary cap and free agency. And then
so you're kind of making, so that's why, so I'm sorry to cut you off, but you're kind of making my point for me though. Dallas was at the Cowboys, I mean, because we're talking 2 Dallas teams. Cowboys were at a kind of a natural end. Now we can talk about what they left on the table, but like the Mavs, I mean, they went from NBA champ to absolute trash.
I wouldn't say trash. They were in the hunt for the playoffs. The thing I was saying about the Cowboys was 97 was the bad year, but 98 they were back on the come up with a new head coach, won the division. 99, the first 3 games they looked like Super Bowl contenders, and then Michael Irvin, game 4, they were up in Philadelphia, should have went 4-0, got planted on his head, and that was the end of his career. And they went on a tailspin. And in 2000, it could have started off great, but you know, injuries and inexperience at key positions, and then that was it. Yeah.
I mean, you know, keeping Gallo, and I get the look. I actually, honestly, understood the idea of, hey, you know, y'all haven't got a lot of time together. This is a blowout. Let's get you and Galloway some work, but you also go, hey, we've got 15 more games to figure it out. Let's sit everybody, and all that. And then, of course, even if that wouldn't have happened, I think people forget, you know, Aikman ends up getting LeVar Arrington. And so, but I don't know, man. I just feel like, I guess the thing that will frustrate me the most about the Mavericks is that Cuban basically lied. Like, he lied to the fans.
Yeah.
And he literally, and I think if he'd have just said that, like, hey, we won, now we're going to tear down things, trade Dirk, let's rebuild, that'd have been fine. But to then pretend that for the next 5 years, oh, we really want to win, I've never felt like Cuban really wanted to win since then. And I get it. 20 years he chased that damn thing. Finally got it. Just let go, give up, move on. You got your title, move on. And I don't know. Anyway, where do you want to go now?
Well, I had mentioned Caitlin Clark earlier, and then I completely forgot the whole awkward interview she had with that dude from the Indianapolis Star.
Couple of them,
but this one was the weirdest one because
this was the worst one.
Indianapolis Star reporter Greg Doyle. There were an introductory news conference, and it was his turn to ask a question. He made the heart-shaped gesture with his hands that Caitlin Clark famously does. She does it for her family and family members and some of her friends at games. Here was the exchange, okay? He does this. Mm-hmm. She says, "You like that, huh?" And Doyle is like, I kind of wanted to do this in a creepy voice just to really nail in the point, but Doyle says, I like that you're here. I like that you're here. Clark says, yeah, I do this gesture for family after every game, so pretty cool. And then Doyle ends it with, well, start doing it to me, and we'll get along just fine. I'm like, that's just the weirdest exchange in an interview. Very creepy. So,
you know, we both still know him, but I don't hang out with him anymore. I don't think you hang out with him anymore either. But there's a guy we know that's from my area of the state that I will 100% if he's this type of guy where he means well. I'm talking about Elysian Fields, by the way. He means well, really good dude, but can sometimes do and say the most awkward, weird, or at least he did back when I knew him. He might be completely different now. I feel like that's what this was. I don't think. Now, there was the other interaction where a dude kind of was like, almost like, you're pretty. That was, I mean, he didn't say that, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, it was weird. He said, but to me, this one, that last part does it for me. I get it, but I think that's one of those things where that dude just didn't know when to shut up, felt he had to keep talking. And it just, you've seen that. It gets worse. It gets worse. It gets worse. I feel bad for him, but I do think you can't, at least for 1 year, you take him off of being in the locker room. I think that's a smart thing to do.
I mean, probably even longer. I mean, she's devout Catholic, has a long-term boyfriend. Like you know her story because everybody covers her and looks her up and wants to know everything about her. So it just seems weird that he would
I
even.
don't even think Aaron says was he shooting his shot. I don't even know if he was really trying to. I think he was just trying to be like, hey, you be nice to me, I be nice to you. I don't think he actually meant it like, hey, I want to get in your pants. I just, again, I think what happened is he just felt the need to say something, and the brain wasn't saying like, dude, okay, you're good, shut up. She's happy, she thinks that's sweet. Don't add to it, and it's like. He immediately adds to it. And it just, and again, it comes back to the whole, like how you treat women, in sports and how you treat women in your workplace and things like that. 10 years ago, that's probably a cute story. Now it just doesn't fly. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I think everything was done right. Yet I do still feel bad for the guy. I don't think he meant it the way he did, but you can't do that.
You can't at all.
That should be our gimmick now. We should try to get into all press conferences just to ask the worst awkward question. Not just the females either. Like get into all of them. Like, hey, Corey Seager, what do you think about the Fanatics pants being see-through? I kind of like it. And then do that.
Well, Terry's already OutDrank the Coverage.
I might have been.
What did you think about Dan Quinn's shirt at a press conference?
All right, we're gonna pull this up. We're gonna start doing a little bit more of on the happy hour stuff, pulling things up that we can actually watch and talk about and stuff.
So while you're doing that, I'll just paint the picture here. He was at a press conference doing what he does. He's a head coach. He's gonna do Q&A. At the press conference, though, he is wearing a Washington Commanders shirt. But attached to the right side, I guess when you start doing the W at that very beginning of it, there's 2 feathers. And as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I remember, they're not the Redskins anymore. They're the Commanders. So why even have the 2 feathers there next to the W?
Now, I will say this. I don't think he was trying to make any statement. I don't think, Dan Quinn, for all accounts, is very non-political. He's just a football coach. The Washington already came out and said, look, this wasn't official. This wasn't anything. They didn't know he was going to wear it. I'm going to go ahead and say, I don't even know if he even knew that the feathers were on there. Like he doesn't seem like a guy that takes a lot of time picking out his shirts.
Fair point. But why was this even produced?
Because there's a massive subset of America, right or wrong, to the right or wrong, that just still can't get over the fact that Washington changed their name. Now, I will say this. I get it for someone like my mom, who is a huge Washington fan. I get it if she's like, man, I grew up with that name, not grew up, but that's the name I know, and adjusting. But there are so many people that have no fandom to Washington giving an opinion about what their mascot is. It's obvious they're not doing it because they really care. It's that we're in that political hot point of woke and cancel culture and all that. I do think Washington eventually changes their name. I don't think it goes back to the Redskins. It wouldn't shock me if they went with something that is Native American related. I mean, we've talked about it before. All jokes aside, that helmet right there looks awesome. I thought the best thing that you could do as Washington was go with the red tails or go with the red feathers or something like that, and you could have kept that helmet. And if you went with the red feathers, you could have even kept the feathers. But even then, just take that and just, be W, but that design, or be R with red feathers, red tails, and all that. Aaron Jackson said, but how does that shirt get presented to him as an option? Oh, dude, I'll say this. Coaches get you don't wear your own shit when you're a coach. You get shirts upon shirts upon shirts. Somebody probably gave it to him. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he knows. Maybe he's like, yeah, I'm going to make a statement. From everything that he's been, and as much as he frustrated me as a Dallas defensive coordinator, he seems like he's a good dude. Players want to play for him, all that kind of stuff. I don't think it was intentional. I just think it was a shirt. He put it on, and boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's trying to make a statement. Like, to your point, it's just in poor taste. Hey, the Washington Redskins, they had one of my favorite looks. Like a lot of the rivals for my Cowboys, I always like their looks. The Giants, I love their looks. Eagles, the Kelly Green, I love their look. Washington, I always love the look, whether they're wearing the white jersey with the red pants at home, or the rare times, because a lot of times they would wear the white jerseys at home and not wear the darker colored jersey.
Yeah, the burgundy.
The burgundy jersey anywhere except for another team like Dallas who wore white at home. So they would bust out that. And I always like that look too. So, or the red jersey with the yellow pants. Right, look.
There's a reason why I have that up there.
It's beautiful.
Not just because it's the Dallas Cowboys NFC East rivals, but because they all look great. And like even today, I was going to put up the Green Bay and San Francisco because that's our next look backs. But I was like, no, I kind of like those helmets up there. I mean, we're about to make. I know we just made changes in the studio, but we're about to make really, really big changes in the studio. But I can tell you one thing: those sons of bitches are going to be somewhere where you can be seen at all times when we're recording OutDrank The Coverage, because I just love those looks. And partly, yeah, it's because we grew up with them, but legitimately, I feel like these are some of the best. And I don't mean that Washington. I think Washington now looks good. I think people hate on them just because of the Commanders. I don't like the black jersey, but everything else, I still think they look good, dude. That gold and burgundy that they wear, I think the helmet looks good with the W. Again, I would have no problem if they changed their name. I'd never liked Commanders in the first place. I still feel like that was a big FU by Daniel Snyder. And I do think they changed their name. Speaking of, hey, off the cuff, what are your thoughts about Utah and their hockey and their mascots and where they're going to go?
Man, any number of ways. I'm happy that there's a hockey team in Utah that just seems like it makes a lot of sense. I don't know what name you would give them. The Frosties or the Fighting Mormons. I really don't know what would
be awesome, dude. Let me pull up the name.
Because Jazz is just from New Orleans. That they were the New Orleans Jazz. They moved to Utah. They were just too lazy or uncreative to come up with a better name. So Utah Jazz. I mean that has no affiliation with the state of Utah.
Yeah, and I get that they kept it just because, but I really wish they'd have changed that. So right now, the NHL is asking fans to make a decision, and they have 20 possible things, and they're actually going to decide pretty quick, or the voting's going to be pretty quick. I think it ends May 22nd. And so let me see. I'm trying to pull up the names.
I got Frost, Ice, Powder, Mountaineers, Freeze,
Fury.
Oh, Fury, Squall, Yeti, the Yeti, Outlaws, Blizzard,
Black
Blast, Glaciers. Glaciers is a good one. Venom, and HC for Hockey Club. So Utah HC, which is pretty cool and unique.
Yeah, that was kind of funny that first year with Washington, but I don't. I know soccer does that, but American sports, we mascot, so get a mascot.
I think Blizzard, Swarm, or Hive will probably be the top three just because it sounds better. I don't think it might. I think Blizzard might be the one that actually fits Utah, but I think Swarm or Hive might be up there just because it sounds good. Utah Swarm, Utah Hive.
I like Utah Hive. I like Utah Frost. I like Utah Ice. I like Utah Freeze. I don't like Powder. That sounds weird. If they really had balls about them, they would go with the Utah Cannibals or the Utah Donner Party, but they won't. I know. But I like. I don't like Venom. I like Yeti. But the problem with Yeti is that almost sounds like a minor league baseball team. The Flying Squirrels or something. Outlaws is too generic. Utah Mountaineers. And that's not bad. I know people think of Colorado in the mountains, but hey, folks, Utah has a lot of them too as well. I like the freeze and ice though. I kind of think that sounds cool.
Yeah, frost, freeze is good.
Go ice blue, like baby blue and ice colors. That'd be cool.
You want to get it right because you want it to sound good. I don't think Black Diamond should be considered just because of
Wow, you're racist.
Well, the implication of Black Diamond, Blood Diamond. It'll just be a parallel that people will make.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a real good point. And for people that think, oh, we're woke society, dude, for 30 years to 100 years, well, not really that long, but at least in the last 30 years, when a new team is created or a team moves and they change names, they do so many studies. Like, there was probably 100 names that they whittled down from. And by the way, the thing about voting like this, you don't know how legit this is. For all we know, NHL knows what they want, and they can make it look like however they want. There's no way to ever prove that any of this voting works. I know there's teams that have been named where everybody's like, yeah, nobody voted for that, and they claim that they did. So we'll see. I'm excited. I love new teams. I love expansion. I hate that they moved from Arizona, but look, it just, whatever reason, that wasn't going to be a fit. I know that supposedly they have 5 years to come back. They're not. And I have no problem with that. Arizona and it's not that people don't play. I want to understand this about hockey in Arizona, like youth, is like Dallas. It's actually really big. There are a couple big players in the NHL now from Arizona.
Kachuk.
Yes. But see that, but again, that kind of doesn't count because he basically was from there because his dad finished out his career in Arizona. So I'm not saying that's not valid, but I'm talking about like Seth Jones is from Dallas. His dad played basketball. He played youth hockey in Dallas.
Popeye Jones,
man, great one. Seth has not been as great as what he was. Again, go back to now. He plays a different position, defense. But remember when he came into the league, he was supposed to be the next hot thing, and now he's kind of bounced around a couple teams and just can't really find
it was a big deal. He was, a black player.
Whoa!
Number 2.
Oh, sorry.
He's still a black player, not was.
No,
but he was the number 2 overall pick in the NHL
like
draft.
Wait. So when he went to the NHL, he didn't become white? I'm confused.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah,
it's weird how that works. But no, I'm excited about it. I love new things just so I can turn around and bitch about them later. But us. I mean, again, uniforms, that's a real big part of our sports. So I'm so excited to see what they're going to do.
So before the star of the show, Ryan, comes on, I want to get a couple of promotional things out of the way. One, you were telling me about that we might do a cross promotion with Brett on Who Killed WCW.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about eventually. So there's a Vice does Beyond the Mat. I think this is the last year they're doing it. Mm-hmm. And so one of their big things this year is basically the Monday Night Wars, which is I think well, I don't want to say it's my favorite because I do have the 80s. By the way, Iron Claw is now on Max to watch.
Great movie.
The fiance and I are going to watch that this week. Oh, by the way, the fiance will be making an appearance on Bad Movies and a Drink this weekend. We're going to watch Madam Web because it's on Netflix.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I heard that was bad, and I saw it available, and I'm still, as a comic book fan
you're a huge comic book guy.
I don't want to watch it. But I know at some point I'm going to be hanging out at the house one night, have one too many cocktails, and be like, screw it. Let me put it on. Let me see.
So tonight's the night is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I am not a comic book person, but Spider-Man is my favorite. I hate Dakota Johnson's acting. I think she is very boring. I don't understand people's love for her, but Adam Scott is in this. That is something and apparently he's actually really good in it. A lot of people are saying basically the biggest issue outside of plot was that Dakota Johnson was obviously just phoning it in. And so we'll see. But anyway, so me and her are going to do bad movies. But let's go back to Vice. So what my whole point is I think the 80s is still probably my favorite as a kid, nostalgia, but I really love the Monday Night Wars. I've told you this before, that got me back into wrestling. In fact, I just randomly happened to be watching in 1996 when WCW won the first Monday night. And then I didn't even watch for a little bit after that. But when I went back to junior college, one of the guys I met, Jackson, if you're listening, love you, buddy. He's a huge wrestling guy. He still to this day has thousands of VHS tapes, and I mean thousands of VH tapes of old school wrestling, Japan wrestling. He knows it all. And so I got back into it, for me, perfect, 1997 to 2000. That is when the NWO was at its best, when it really became, you watch one first, you record the other one, and then TNT got smart and said, hey, you know what? We're going to show it at 7, and then we're going to show it at 11, back to back. That was perfect. And man, I love that. That's when wrestling to me was at its best.
Yeah, it's funny because competition does that. It forces multiple companies to do what they have. They cater to the fans. They cater to their audience, their customers. You kind of see in a resurgence now with AEW and WWE. But yeah, back then, the WWE went a different route. They started to develop some young talent and give them a lot of creative control or liberties. And you got people like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, the biggest star in Hollywood right now, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, who basically runs the WWE right now. And then you go to WCW. They went the other route where they went to sign high-priced free agents from ECW and WWE. And it worked for a while, but the creative just started to go downhill. And then when the creative went downhill, then they were dead.
Got bad news.
What?
Ryan has had a car issue, so he probably will not be able to make it tonight. So what we'll do here, I want to finish this point, but I will go ahead and go over to Texas Ranger fans only.
Okay.
And we'll answer some of those questions. Ryan will be back. I don't know if he'll be. Is he gonna? I think we'll see if he'll join us next week for the scheduled show. But a true live happy hour for baseball will be in 2 weeks, and we're going to do a look back at the 1994 strike. But hang on, let me go ahead and pull over there. But anyway, I wanted to ask you this because I have a hot sports opinion. Who was the better anti-hero? Stone Cold Steve Austin in WWE at that time, WWE or WWF, excuse me, and who or Sting in WCW? Who was the better anti-hero? Give me Sting.
Wow, that is a hot take. I need to know why you said that.
Just as an anti-hero, I think he was the true definition of an anti-hero. An anti-hero is the guy in the movies that doesn't really want to do it, but once he's committed, he's going to die trying. Stone Cold never was a hero at all. Stone Cold did his own thing, which was awesome. I'm not saying this is bad, but he did his own thing. If it happened to align with what the good guys were doing, great. If it happened to align with what the bad guys are doing, great. As long as his agenda was being pushed. Sting wasn't like that. Also, Sting went 9 months without saying one word on TV. Think about that. In a sport that is 100% about your personality and about your mic work. And Sting was awesome at the mic. But as the Crow, when he transformed, and by the way, I sent you that video. Scott Hall gets credit for that. Scott Hall is literally the one that told him, like, dude, you got to stop dressing like the 80s and do something new. You should be the Crow. And so he went 9 months without saying one word, and yet was the biggest part of WCW in that run because that character just worked. Because it didn't feel like he was just copying the Crow. He made the Crow character, Crow Sting, he made it his own thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he was a moody and justified hero, or in your case, anti-hero. I guess going back to the plot line back then, a lot of the WCW guys thought that Sting was going to be the third member. Now, storyline wise, I found out years ago that he actually was one of the options before Hulk Hogan was the main guy that was chosen. So
Yeah.
we could have had an NWO with the leader of Sting in a different parallel universe. But he felt betrayed by WCW. He felt betrayed by his friends in storyline, of course. And then he was like, I'm just done with it. I'm out. So I guess I can see from that perspective why you would call him an anti-hero, because he kind of just quit. He quit the good guys, didn't side with the bad guys. He just quit because he felt betrayed. Like, he was very justified in his actions. Like, if you and I were in his shoes, we were betrayed, we would probably have the same reaction and just leave, or jump to the other side. The other side being the NWO, who wanted him. So I guess I get your point. I'll still stick with Steve Austin. I think this should be.
I think. I'm sorry. I think the whole character, the totality of the character, Stone Cold was awesome. I'm not. I don't. Again, this is one of those where you're picking a diamond or a diamond. I just think for what they wanted him to be, Sting was a better anti-hero. I think Stephen Austin was more of the just F you to everybody, which is an anti-hero in of itself, but you know what I mean.
This probably should be a bigger show because
no, it will be. And I was about to say that we're going to eventually. This is going to be one of our look backs. We're starting to work again in a couple of weeks. We're going to do it with baseball and the strike. We have the special in studio look backs, and we're going to try to do some not smaller, but maybe like broken up into bigger parts and do them like this. And in fact, we might even do some themed happy hours, and the wrestling in general, but especially that wrestling from 1996 to 2001, that's really near and dear to both of us. We both were very connected to that. Like I said, watching, I mean, that was back when I watched, and I'm not saying I watched them live, but I watched the Monday night, I watched the Thursday night, I watched the Saturday Night Thunder or whatever that was called. Now, I will say this, I always leaned more to WCW than I did WWF.
I think I did for a while there, up until about 90. I think Austin kept me watching WWF, and Scott Hall kept me watching WCW. And then I kind of just started gradually leaning toward, by 99, I was only watching WWF just because The Rock had become a superstar. You could see what they were doing with Triple H. Undertaker was just so unique compared to everybody else. Mankind, Mick Foley, he was, again, also unique compared to everybody else. Did you know he's 6'4"? I always thought he was just a short guy.
Who, Mick Foley? Mick Foley,
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
So, yes. So, I've told you this before. I one of the things I used to do was go to wrestling. And one of the ones we went to in Shreveport at Hirsch Coliseum, Jackson always had these great seats. I've told you about the WCW stories. The Giant getting punked on so well that even he was like, all right, that's pretty good. But one of the other ones was Mick Foley. We got to see WWF like a month later. And literally walks out next to us. And I'm like, I don't look up to a lot of people. And not only to look up, but like to look up by a couple inches. And I'm 6'1". It's the same thing with Steve Nash. I've told you that Steve Nash story. I was working back when I worked for CBS Radio. I was at American Airlines helping get some what's called B-roll. And B-roll and audio is the same way. It's the same thing like when you hear a commercial on the radio and you have a sports break and they'll have a clip. Like Dirk talks about, the Steve Nash was there, and Steve Nash is 6'3". Yep. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, you're taller than me. Screw you. But yeah, Mick Foley was one of those that lived on the supposedly, he's gutty and all, but that dude was massive.
Yeah.
I was a WCW guy. I watched WWF because Jackson and them did it, and it was fun. I just couldn't get over the 80s corny that whole. I was not a fan of the 80s WWF. I watched it just because I was a kid, but like I was a Von Erich, Mid-South, WCCW, TNA, back when TNA was not like Billy Corgan owned, but like the real TNA and all that. So I was always a WCW guy. And that's one of the reasons why I want to do that show with you, because we're coming from different, excuse me, I'm like you now. We're coming from different perspectives though. Because you didn't watch every Monday. Did you ever get the wrestling magazines?
No, I didn't get them. I didn't subscribe, but anytime I went to the convenience store or like Kroger, I would check to see if there was any wrestling magazines. But yeah, I wasn't like a subscriber or anything like that.
So the funny thing is back in the day, I loved them because you got all the house shows. And for people that don't know, a house show is an video. It's just, they're just traveling around. And the funniest thing now looking back is they would give weekly results like that mattered. Like, so-and-so beat so-and-so. And I didn't know back then the old idea of like Mick Foley would win a title on TV, but then turn around and immediately the very next day in a house show lose it, but win it back by the time the next taping was. And so I didn't know all that and things like that. But yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about the about wrestling coming forward in the future. Again, this happy hour over the last few months has been like all NFL, and we're fine with that. But we want to keep stretching out. We want to talk all sports. All right, so Ryan isn't here because he's a loser and he doesn't like us.
Well, so, Terry, before you get into that, you wanted to talk about fandom?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
I want to make sure we've already been on almost 2 hours. I want to make sure we get through these questions. And the fandom might be its own sport thing anyway. Basically, the idea is we want to talk about like, what are your rules of fandom? Who do you like? Why do you like? And all that. But let's go through the comments. By the way, you can check out this group, Texas Ranger Fans Only on Facebook. We really appreciate all the work they've done.
Only Ranger fans?
Only Texas Ranger Fans Only. Yeah, Texas Ranger Fans Only. Make sure I get that right. And so what we do each week is we have questions. Where did it go? Dadgummit. Hang on. I got to find it again. There's a lot of...
Well, watch your language.
Screw you, you little bitch. What? You're right. No. All right. So here we go. I don't know if these are all questions, but man, we got a lot of them. All right. So let's start at the beginning. Tracy Hawkins. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Barbara Davis Rappold asked, what happened in Colorado? Well, they got swept. I mean, and by the way, Colorado's always been just a really weird area, thing for Texas. I remember last year they went into Colorado. I think Colorado won 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 and all that. Look, it's a long baseball season, man. I know that gets really generic and I know that gets really repetitive, but that's true. It's a long baseball season. And going back to what you and I talked about earlier, this is the first year since probably 2014, 2015 that the Rangers have a target on their back. When they go into a town, people actually are like, we want to beat that team. We want to show people that we can beat the World Series champs.
Yeah, they have a target on their back, and they have some injuries, and they're not going to be the team that's going to get you 90, 100 wins right now. Maybe that second half of the season, yeah, but I was still shocked that they got swept at Colorado.
That was too.
Colorado has a record of 12-28. They are the second worst team in the NL and third worst team overall record-wise. So, yeah, you're on a roll. You've beaten some good teams, and then you go to Colorado, which is a very hitter-friendly ballpark, and then you can't hit for crap all weekend. Yeah. You could at least get one game. But the Rangers just got swept. It's just one of those. It's happened to almost every World Series champion where they'll have a week or two where it's a very derpy moment where they just don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. It's happened to every team. It's just.
Well, and that happens. Yeah, you just say it's not just World Series. It happens to every team. And you bring up a good point. What were they doing beforehand? And they had went in, they had struggled against the Astros and the A's. Let's not forget that. Remember a couple weeks ago, they lost at home to the A's in 2 out of 3. But then they had gotten hot. But you can also make the point that this team with a ton of injuries, they kind of just probably walked into to Colorado and probably didn't take them serious enough. Hey, we just got through beating the Royals, who've been an upstart team, the Athletics, who've been an upstart team, the Nationals, who haven't been bad. They're not great, but they're around 500. And so they'd played really good. Oh, and the Reds, they'd taken 2 out of 3 from the Reds. And so I think a lot of it was just the natural, you've got the Cleveland in now. You've got the Angels in a couple are in the next series. You've got the Phillies, who are kind of a hot button team of this might be a team you see in the World Series. So I think there was a little bit of looking past Colorado.
Hey, Philadelphia is doing the opposite of what they've done the last couple of years. They're actually off to a really hot start. They have the best record in baseball, which last couple of years they kind of just been preparing for the postseason. Just get to the playoffs as a wild card, and they'll take care of business from there. So I want to see how this approach helps Philadelphia going forward, because Atlanta is going to get red hot come summertime. The Dodgers are going to get red hot. And Milwaukee and Chicago are going to be there, so it kind of.
I like, whoever's in the Central.
In both leagues, like I guess I kind of feel that way right now.
I don't trust I know the AL Central has started hot, and I know there are a lot of people talking about, oh, that's this year's AL West, and it might be. I don't trust them though. I don't trust them, at least right now. And again, they might prove me wrong. Michael Kozlowski asked, "Is there any possibility that the Rangers as a team aren't properly conditioned, which leads to a vast amount of injuries?" Boy,
Nolan Ryan. That's a Nolan Ryan question right there.
Well, and also that's a big thing. You're big on that too. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but like we'll talk about that when a team gets hurt. Now, first off, this is just baseball in today's world. People are more willing to sit people for 5 to 6 games instead of possibly hurting them in the future. I know that you can do that's soft. Look, that ain't the players, dude. That's the team going, hey, we're paying Corey Seager $110 million. So if we sit him down for 10 games over a 7-year contract, it's okay. So I don't think it has anything to do with that. Dude, this thing just happens. You go, like you and I have talked about. I'll say this. And I know like Diggs got hurt last year and he tore his knee and he was out for the year and all. But man, it feels like since 2020, Dallas in football has been pretty lucky injury wise. That concerns me going into a season. These things run in cycles. There's no right or wrong, and all that. So no, I don't think it's anything to do with their staff. First off, Jacob deGrom, injury prone. Max Scherzer, in the last part of his year, injury prone. Corey Seager. There's a reason why Corey Seager didn't win the MVP last year, because he missed too many games at the beginning of the year because he at times gets injury prone. So I don't really think it's anything the Rangers are doing. It's just how it goes.
And it was one of the best years of his career. It's just he didn't play enough games. That was the only problem. It's early in the season. We haven't even hit June. We haven't even hit the All-Star break. So just cool your jets. It's a long season. It's a war of attrition. And it's kind of nice that in that case, relievers are premium commodity right now.
Yes.
And
yes.
Having a deep bullpen is. Go ahead.
100%. Josh Vorderbaum asked, I'm personally not, but as a fan base, are we concerned about Wyatt Langford's performance to this point? And we talked about this last week. I'm not. And here's why. He has not hit as great as everybody thought he would, but he has not once looked truly overpowered. We went back to Jackson Holiday. There was a reason why Jackson Holiday got sent back. It wasn't because he was batting 185. It's because he was batting 185 and at one point had struck out like 7 of 10 times. He obviously was not ready to handle the pitching. Wyatt Langford's looking good in his bats. It's baseball. You can hit the ball on the screws 9 times and 7 of them you don't get a hit. I'm not worried about him yet. I'm not worried about Evan Carter yet. I think that those are just the things. I think we Ranger fans, and not we, but y'all, I think y'all got to remember, I know we won the series last year and all, but baseball, as you keep saying, it's a long sport. Yeah, the offense is struggling. Guess what? It's May 13th. I don't care if the offense is struggling May 13th. If the offense is struggling August 13th, then I'll be worried. And yeah, the offense hasn't been consistent. Again, Josh Young hurt. Wyatt Langford now hurt. Evan Carter's been beat up. Corey Seager has started slow. I know it's very cliche, but I think we all just need to chill and just enjoy the baseball season. We're the defending World Series champs. They'll figure it out. And they probably won't win it this year, folks. There's a reason why there's only been 19 back-to-back winners in this modern era. And like 90% of that was the Yankees, and most of that was in the 60s and in the early 2000s. But anyway, let's go back to let's see.
And a
Oh,
lot of modern day baseball players, they don't start producing or coming up into the majors until they're 24, 25. It's an older crop of rookies nowadays.
that's
So
a really good point because and it's getting better now because they're kind of relaxing that whole option thing. Now you don't have to keep a guy through May, whatever, to keep that year. In fact, they actually entice you to play them early. You get draft picks if you bring up your guys early and stuff. But you're right. We are talking about this isn't the days of a lot of 19 and 20-year-old like Pete Incavie. And saying that White Langford, but even White Langford, he went to college. He's not a kid out of high school. And even Pete Incavia was older. That's a lot of things people don't forget about or remember about Incavia. It wasn't like he was 17 coming up to the majors. He played at Oklahoma State. He had 100 home runs at Oklahoma State. He played, he was older. So that's a great point. Jeff Sifford could the faster pitch time be part of the pitching injuries? We talked about that last week. I don't think so. The Tommy John thing has been a thing for a long time, but like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, in my opinion, it was even worse. So I really don't think it's the pitch clock.
yeah, I remember watching a documentary about high schoolers purposely getting Tommy John and taking a year or two off, which was ridiculous to me. But I guess the mindset was you're gonna need to have Tommy John surgery anyway. Might as well do it when you're younger. To this day, I still can't fathom that rationale.
Again, I think that's one of those things that got talked about way more than was actually happening. I think the part that you said that people don't say is those kids already had the ulnar nerve probably either torn, frayed, or whatever. So they were already headed that way. So let's go ahead. It's not like a dude with a normal regular arm and the doctor's like, screw it. Let's cut that fricker and let's do it. No, it wasn't ever like that. So you bring up a really good point of they were already either hurt or headed that way. You might as well do it now at 17. By the way, did you see what MLB have told all their teams? You can't. I guess MLB teams are telling players in America, don't go to college, don't play high school ball. In fact, go live in Canada or claim that you're from Mexico, and then you can go into the international, which is a completely different thing. First off, they got to stop that. Everybody should be available to draft, period. There shouldn't be a side way to get in the door. And saying that, the Rangers took advantage of that international stuff for years. People forget that in the 90s, the Rangers had one of the they usually had a lineup that had the most Hispanics, the most South Central Americans, because that's what they did. They had a great academy. I think it was in Puerto Rico. They had a great academy. They were signing Pudge Rodriguez, Juan Gonzalez, those type of guys at 16 and 17. I think they need to get rid of that. Just have a full draft. We all know who everybody is now. There ain't some kid nobody knows about. Put them in the draft. But anyway, let's see. Somebody asked, why is Adolis Garcia still in the lineup? He's obviously in a slump. Okay, so when you're an all-star, when you've led your team to World Series, you're allowed to hit out of a slump, which is the way it should be. You're not. You might give them a day off, but you're not giving guys who have proven themselves at the major league level multiple years. You're not sending them down unless it's just so bad that holy crap, you can't do anything. Garcia hasn't been that way. He's struggling, but he still has a hit in like 6 of the last 10 games. So, I mean, you just don't do that to establish players. You just don't go, oh, hey, we're sitting you for a week.
Yeah, it's the old saying, like you said, hit your way out of the slump. I still remember watching the Yankees and Derek Jeter, and it was one of the few times the Yankee fans showed mercy. I think he was like an over 32 slump, and he went up to bat for that 33rd at bat. Fans were cheering, like they weren't booing him, like you would think a Yankees fan base would. And that's just one of those things. Like they understand; those are smart fans. They know this is how you get out of a slump. You just got to get that one hit. So it was kind of surreal just watching fans, kind of like, well, I think I remember telling you when Randall Cunningham started for the Cowboys at Veterans Stadium against the Eagles.
Yeah,
the fans cheered him, which is very out of character for Eagle fans. But they love them some Randall Cunningham. It didn't matter that he was in a Cowboy uniform. With the Yankees, they loved Jerry Jeter, and they knew he was in a slump and it wasn't helping the team. But they decided to cheer him instead of boo him, which I thought was pretty solid.
No, I do too, and I want to bring this up. The Rangers right now, and I know this isn't a lot of it, but the Rangers right now are 5th in batting average. They are 7th in OBP, on base percentage. They're 13th in slug. They are, I think, 14th in home runs. 14th in home runs. OPS, I think they're top 10, if I'm not mistaken. They're 12th. They're 12th now. So, and this is with both leagues. This is both stats. So again, we're comparing the totality of what they did last year from April through the World Series and going now. Well, why aren't they doing that again? Well, they are. Again, we're in May. Tom Grieve used to always say when a guy starts slow, whatever his averages are, he'll end up hitting that. And that's been true since the dawn of time. So I think that we as a fan base, and I say we, not me, because I'm smart and y'all aren't. No, I think we as a fan base, though, we're getting a little too caught up in the game to game. Oh, by the way, they're 3rd in runs in major leagues. They're 3rd in runs. And so all these people, and I'm not saying y'all are wrong. I'm just saying all y'all are worried about the offense. The offense so far has been perfectly fine. Yeah, they struggle at times. All baseball offenses struggle at times. Well, except for when I play MLB The Show, but that's because I put it on easy and I only hit like 300 home runs per player. I can't do that in the majors. So anyway, so it's okay, folks. The stats will even it out, but also I still not 100% sure that this team this year is going to win a World Series. I just want them to make the playoffs. Which me and your dad were talking about, by the way. I mean, me and my dad. Remember, we were all talking about that Saturday. Yeah, hey, we just want them to make the playoffs.
Because 2025, if everybody stays healthy, that's going to be a really special team. Just getting to the playoffs this year would be great. I'm still riding the high of the World Series last season. I'm going to keep Corey Seager and Adolis Garcia's home runs as part of my yearly watch along, like Jason Terry in Game 5 of the 2011 Finals, Mavs versus Heat. There's a lot of good memories there, and I think this is still a good team. They have a lot of injuries. They still have a winning record. They're still in the hunt for the AL West. Keep calm. It's a long season. They've only played 42 games. Tonight's game 43,
and they're a half game out of first place.
And it's a 162 game season, so they still got about 120 games left. So just give it some time.
So Noe hates baseball. All right. So I did have a question earlier from an email, and I meant to. I thought they were going to come in. I feel like we had some. Like I keep getting this thing that we have questions on YouTube. Like I keep getting this email. You have unanswered questions on YouTube, but I'm going to YouTube and I'm not seeing them. So I'm not sure what's going on. But somebody had asked me, do we? And this was for Ryan too, but he's not here. Do we? And I'm going to ask you, Noe. Do you think the Astros dynasty is over, or do you think they're still going to be good this year, or is this maybe like, what was it, 2014 for the Rangers when they just had a really bad year in the middle of like really good years? Well, what is your thoughts on that?
I think it's just a really bad year only because of injuries. They had a lot of key injuries to start the season, so I'm not surprised they're struggling. I don't think their dynasty is over, not one bit. They could very well get healthy by July and then go on a tear in August, September. And
the West is not separating. Everybody's staying right around the same with them. And I still think at the end of the day, it's the Astros, the Rangers, and the Mariners that will be your core. Look, it's fun. I love what they're doing. It'd be awesome. And to be honest with you, if I could pick any team to win a World Series this year, not the Rangers, it would be awesome if it was Oakland, but it ain't going to happen. They're going to still end up at the end of the day with like 70 wins at most.
Which would be a great year for them.
Yep. No, you're right.
Because they're still young and developing. Regardless of them moving to Sacramento and then later Vegas, this is a team that's going to actually be pretty good by the time they get to Vegas. They're just young.
Yep. Great point. By the way, let's bring in Ryan.
Oh, where is he at?
Ryan, that's the best work you've ever done, buddy. Good job. Congratulations. We're not through yet. We're winding down, though. I do wanted to show this. So Saturday, you and I have known each other for, 13 years now, basically? Actually, I guess longer now.
Well, 14 technically,
14
but
years,
hanging out for the last 13.
Yeah. And for the first time, you got to meet Sam Elliott as we had dinner with my family and yours. Well, you and your girlfriend. But anyway, I just wanted to show that because I think that's a funny picture.
Yeah, it was nice meeting your dad. He is definitely a rascal and a character.
Yeah, my favorite part of the night, though. So my mom and my fiance both bought these big old, we were at a restaurant and the big old margaritas, and they had an extra shot. And so the night's winding down, and they both still have like a half. And my fiance goes, "I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish this." And my mom looks at her and basically is like, "Don't be a little bitch. I'm drinking this, you're drinking this, so we're gonna drink this together." Anyway, I just wanted to show that. Let's see if there's any more other questions. And if we didn't answer your question, it's because we've probably already answered it before, or it's just, again, it's like the injury thing for the arm. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Look on the run sheet. Is there anything you want to hit on before we wrap things up?
The fandom.
Okay, so the fandom, and we'll do this more of a show, but basically I can't remember what it was. I was reading something, and it was like, what are your rules of fandom? Like, so what is your rules? Intern, pro, slut, Noe. What do you look at and go, this is my fan rules?
It's not really about individual players, it's the team. A lot of basketball, soccer, people are Messi fans.
Well, basketball and soccer especially, those are two very much individual. And basketball's only really been that way over the last, 10 years or so?
Yeah.
And a lot of that, I think, to do with player movement as well, of course.
Yeah, so they just decided, a lot of current fans of both sports, they're just fans of individual players, not the actual team. So I think to be a real fan, it should be team-oriented because it is a team sport. And that's what people, especially in America, we forget that. We try to individualize team sports by having stars. Like, think about hockey. We just talked about it. They're starving for big-name talent. They got Austin Matthews, a guy that won the MVP last season, almost scored 70 goals this season.
And only because he wasn't hurt that he didn't score 70.
Yeah, and no one talks about him outside of hockey.
See, so you bring up a really good point right there. And it's something that I forget about, and I think you do to an extent, is that we were just joking about this earlier, we are so big a sports fan that, to me, not talking about Austin Matthews makes no sense. But you're right. If you just go to the average, regular, casual hockey fan, a Dallas Stars fan, and I'm not talking about anybody that's listening. If you're listening to our show, you're probably either you mistakenly thought you're on Pornhub, that'll be in an hour, or you're a hardcore sports fan. But you're right. If I went to I almost said a Reunion Arena, that'd be interesting. If I went to American Airlines Center on a regular, I'm not talking about during the playoffs, on a regular season game on a Wednesday night and asked who Austin Matthews was, I think most would maybe be able to say, oh, he's a hockey player, but not be able to talk about just exactly how good Austin Matthews is.
Exactly. But having said all that, it's still a team sport. And I think we should be focused more on, you should know the individual players, but you should be, if you're a real fan, I think you should be a fan of the team, regardless of the changes. Like, you're committed to this team. That's how I view it. I've never veered from any of take the four major sports in America: basketball, hockey, football, baseball.
Yeah.
Never veered from my four, but mostly because they're in the DFW Metroplex.
Yeah, you and I are both, and I think most people are very locally tied. Now, again, I'm from East Texas, so it's a little different for me growing up. I was able to be a fan of Dallas teams and Houston teams and even like New Orleans Saints, because they, where I saw New Orleans Saints. I was a fan of all three. I mean, I wear my Houston Oilers hat all the time. I have 2 Houston Oilers hats. My mom always thinks she always gets confused and thinks it's the Houston Astros, and I have to talk her down from the ledge because my mom hates the Astros. But I love how many times have I told you? 1986 Houston Astros, still top 5 team for me. The classic matchup against the Mets in the NLCS, went game 6, amazing. I still was a fan of them. I stopped being a fan of them not because they came to the AL West, but because, and no offense to any Houston fans, some of y'all were dicks when y'all got good. Like, I appreciate that you had never, like, that's your first World Series. This is your first dynasty. Act like that. Don't act like you've been there for years. And I'll say that to any Ranger fans or any, don't act like you've been there if you've never won and then you win. Enjoy it. Accept it. Be honest and innocent about it. Don't assume that, we're the better team we've always been. I just didn't like that. But growing up, man, my fandoms were, now I disagree with you. I was a fan of the Reds because I liked multiple players. Now I could say, well, that made me like the team. And I do think that that's naturally what happens. You like my mom. She always said that she became a Washington fan partly because all my dad's family were Cowboy fans, but also she loved watching Billy Kilmer. Well, then that transitioned to when he wasn't quarterback, she still was a Washington fan. She became a fan of the team through a player.
And that's kind of the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
Players come and go. A Father Time always wins. But that team, for the most part, usually stays there. So I would say my number one, my golden rule is team first.
Yeah.
So,
but you can allow it especially if you're young, you grow into it. And I do think it's a little different now with, everybody connected, internet, social media. I can see now why a kid in Harlingen, Texas becomes a LeBron James fan because he's on TV all the time. You can see him 100 times. Like when I was a kid, I became a Laker fan mainly because in the 80s, and I still remember a time when NBA wasn't even shown live. I'm talking about the NBA finals were not shown live, folks. They were tape delayed till the next day sometimes. And so you were either a 76ers, a Laker, or Celtic fan. Now, you would have like the Houston Rockets, the Sampson era where they went in 84 and 87 to the NBA Finals and lost to the Celtics, the Mavericks of 87. But mainly on national TV, it was always who was playing the Celtics and the Lakers mainly, and then add in like what was that? And then add in like the Milwaukee of the 80s were pretty good and all. And so it's a little different now, I think. You get to see everybody. So I can understand people not being in the same area, being a fan of a team because they like them, whatever reason. Colors, players, style of play, whatever that may be.
Did you want to talk about NIL?
We'll save that for later.
Okay.
I feel like we're kind of in a good spot. We're about to wrap up, don't you?
Gotta wrap it up, B. Gotta wrap it up.
Since Ryan doesn't want to be with us, I think he just doesn't want to answer all the Ranger fan questions because they're losing. He can't handle it.
He got some stardom, some fame and recognition, and all the spotlight on him. He's just starting to have the anxiety. He just can't.
Are you saying Ryan's doing lines of coke off strippers' butts right now?
I'm not sure what you're trying to refer to.
Hang on. I'm just trying to see. Let's see where Ryan's at. Ryan, are you? No, dadgummit. Okay, I was just hoping.
I think he is doing that, yeah.
All right, so next Monday we will be back for a normal happy hour instead of a baseball happy hour, simply because we're going to be talking the NFL schedules. It'll be a NFL schedule specific show. And then we might talk a couple other things outside of that. But we'll kind of break down, of course, the Cowboys schedule, Houston schedule, all the games that we really, really into. And all that. Like I said, part of that we're waiting is I love the day after schedules. You get all the top 10 games you can't miss. And I like those because they're interesting, but I also I always save those because I want to go back in like week 12 and see how many of those actually were games we cared about, or how many of the teams, flamed out, because you're going to always get that. But we're going to do that. Friday, we're doing our look backs. Those won't be up Friday. One of them will be up next week. The other one will be in a couple weeks. Dude, we're a couple months away from training camp, dude.
Man, it's fast approaching. Time flies. Ever since we've been doing these happy hours, it just feels like one big thing is happening after another, after another. We just had the NBA draft lottery. Who knows what's going to happen? We got Memorial Day.
Good. Congrats to the Rockets. I know everybody's talking about it. You always talk about the number one seed, the Rockets. You want to talk about a team that might go from 41 wins to 60 wins if they make the right draft at whether they get the fourth spot, I think.
Yeah,
I really like
third spot. Spurs got the fourth spot.
And I like where San Antonio is, but they're still, even if they hit a home run now, I don't know if they're 40 wins next year. But the Rockets, watch out for the Rockets, man. I like where they're at, and I think that they hit that draft lottery home run.
Yeah, I could definitely see them in the top 4 next season. I could definitely see the Lakers slipping. It's going to be an interesting shift in power in the West. I think the Mavericks are in good shape. Okay, what are you going to say, Terry?
Speaking of, and I know this has been a rumor now for like 10 years, but specifically now, it's more and more that LeBron James is looking at Dallas as a possible landing spot next year. What do you think about that?
Wherever Bronny goes, his son, that's a freshman at USC that declared for the draft. Wherever Bronny goes, LeBron will go. He wants to play with his son for 1 year, and then you'll know that he's going to be ready to retire pretty soon. He's born the same year I'm born. I'm born in 84, but he's born in December, so he won't turn 40 until the end of the year, which still being one of the best players in the NBA at that age is ridiculous.
We're going to have to that's going to be down the road some topics, because I have a real I don't, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve some of it because of things he said when he was younger, but this hate for LeBron James just makes no sense to me as far as on the court. We can talk about political, social, what I don't care about. I'm just talking about purely on the court. This idea that people think that LeBron James isn't a top 5 player of all time just blows my mind. I do think that there's a path where LeBron comes to Dallas and Bronny goes to SMU for a year. Because remember, the USC coach is now at SMU. And I don't think, unless they don't care if he gets drafted or not, I don't think Bronny gets drafted in this draft. I don't think he's that good. As far as to be an NBA draft, I'm not saying he can't be an NBA player. I don't think he gets drafted. I think he goes back to college one more year.
He was medically cleared. That was a big issue to start this season with USC. He had to, I think he had it was almost who's the Loyola Marymount player that passed away? Hank Gathers. It was almost a Hank Gathers situation.
What they call a cardiac event.
Yeah, cardiac event. He's been cleared, and the NBA has cleared him. But yeah, I think the younger brother might be the better star, but Bronny can probably be in the NBA. He's going to need some seasoning, sit on the bench a little bit, watch some veterans do their job.
Put him on a good team where he doesn't have to perform right away, and he can be the 9th guy.
He'll be better off than Michael Jordan's kids because they were college good, but they were never going to be in the pros. Bronny and his younger brother will definitely be in the pros.
You think Bronny can be pro good? I'm not sure. I haven't watched him.
Like role player good.
Yeah, I got you.
Now, it just depends on his desire. He has his dad as someone to look up to. Whether he has that want, that urge, that desire to be great, it's to him, really. If he doesn't, then he'll be a good role player.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that him on the bench with LeBron for a year or two, I could see LeBron playing to 45 if he wants to.
He's still one of the best in the NBA. He's still one of the hate for LeBron, like for people our age and older, is there's a perception that he's better than Michael Jordan, which you really can't compare the periods. It's 2 different periods. It was a different style when Jordan was playing versus what LeBron was playing.
And they're 2 different style of players too.
different body types, different positions, different styles. So, but LeBron James is a great player, an all-time
Yes.
great player. My personal opinion, Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. That's not a knock on LeBron James. That's just from me watching Jordan live, pre and post baseball.
Yeah. No, I
And
don't have a problem with that at all. I have them literally. Well, okay. So first off, I think Magic Johnson gets vastly, and I say this weirdly, vastly underrated as far as the greatest player of all time. I think what Magic Johnson was doing, and LeBron doesn't. And if I was going to compare a player to LeBron, it's Magic, not Michael. Both of them are 6'9". Both of them basically ran point guard. Both of them were great with passing the ball, could score. Both of them weren't what you call shooters, but scores, all that kind of stuff. I have no problem if you think LeBron's number one, if Michael's number one, all that. But again, we go back to what we always talk about how people treat teams that don't win champions. This idea that not only that LeBron isn't the best player in the world at one point, he's trash. He's trash. That he's got a terrible finals record. Again, look at the teams he drug. And I'm not talking about Miami, but look at the Cavs teams that he drug to the finals. I mean, it's not fair. I mean, it's John Elway with the Broncos of the 80s. There's a reason why John Elway in the 80s couldn't win a Super Bowl, and John Elway in 1996 or 97 to 98 won a Super Bowl, 2 of them. He had a better team around him. It's amazing how that works.
100% agree with you. It's so absolute. You either are the GOAT or you're trash. As a Star Wars fan, I equate this to being a Sith because they only deal in absolute.
Nice, dude. I love
and that's what that's what this generation is. Like, you're either trash or you're the GOAT. There's no in between, apparently.
I always think of that scene in Coming to America at the beginning when they go to the barber shop.
Yeah.
And they're all talking about Joe Louis and all that. And they're like, yeah, he was the great. And then they bring up somebody else. And they would say, yeah, he ain't as good, but man, he was still really good. We just don't have that. I don't know, man. And part of it's our fault, not ours individually, but part of it is sports talk, sports topics, things like that. So there's part of that I understand this absolute. But Jesus Christ, man, like the Buffalo Bills who went to 4 straight Super Bowls, they're not trash. They just didn't win a championship. The 06 Chargers are not trash. They just didn't win a championship. And it's okay to talk about great teams that didn't win a championship. In fact, I say it all the time. I think that's the most enjoyable thing that you and I talk about a lot of times, are not the teams that won. That's easy. It's the teams that didn't win, and why didn't they win? What was the reason? Was it this or was it? I think that's more enjoyable. Flaws are always more enjoyable to watch than, a Superman that can't be beat. That's the whole reason why you always take powers away from superheroes, because if they have all their powers, what's the fun of that? That's easy.
Kind of ties into our future topic or show discussion of forgotten plays. And
that we great video. I'm not going to do it now because we're on. Great video. I think it was that 5 vids? Was that 5?
I think it was Perna. That's Good Sports.
Yeah, That's Good Sports. Great dude. Go check them out. Fun. He's a big Bronco fan, but he talks all the league. And he had a really good video about the most forgotten plays in NFL history. And basically what it was is, like you have the big plays, but you forget about, like, example, the Miracle, Tennessee. I can't think of the name of that.
Music City Miracle.
Music City Miracle. Everybody talks about the return, but you don't talk about that, how Buffalo scored right before that, and you thought that they were going to win. I don't agree with all of them, but I think it's a really fun topic because, again, as he talks about in that video, hey, yeah, this team won a championship, but let's not forget the team they were playing did some really good things as well, and that's why it was a great game.
Yeah, and then you and I started thinking, oh yeah, there's been other instances of this happening. So yeah, that would be a good show discussion.
That might be a show on all of its own.
Yeah, I would have to really think about it, but yeah, I think that we could come up with a lot of different topics and years and teams and situations.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this week. I want to remind everybody, if you want to email the show, odtcshow@gmail.com. If you're a Ranger fan or a baseball fan, go to Texas Ranger Fans Only on Facebook. You can ask questions there. We always post the thread. Dude, by the numbers, like at one point we had like 5,500 live people joining us. We really appreciate this show. We even talked about we don't even care how many people we get. We just want to do this anyway. This is what you and I do through chat. We get drunk.
Yeah, this was the genesis of the show. Like, we are talking and chatting about it, on G Chat or whatever it's called now. This is something we would do anyway. So why don't we just do it live in front of other people? See if other people also do the same thing that we do.
Yep. And apparently they have, as we keep getting better and better numbers. We're getting great interaction. We really, really appreciate it, folks.
Yep.
You have anything else to add?
No, I enjoyed it, man. There's a lot of stuff we could have talked about, but I mean, we're almost at 2.5 hours. So I think it's time to cut the cord, buddy.
But that's kind of why we wanted to do it this way. I don't know why I did that one. Actually, I didn't mean to. Anyway, until next time, he's intern pro Noe. Pro intern Noe.
The pro?
Pro? I kind of like that one. He's intern Noe. The pro? We might have to do we might have to one day have some fun and tape some some wrestling interviews, shoot interviews where we go after each other and we go after that. Ryan, what do you have to say about that? Hey guys, y'all do whatever you want. Okay, buddy, we appreciate that. You okay? Yeah, I'm great. Just gotta get my cookies and milk. Okay, buddy, you have a good one. All right, folks, we appreciate everybody for joining us. Remember, check us out on YouTube at L4 Media Company. Find us on Facebook, OutDrank The Coverage, L4 Media Company, Sideline to Sideline. Follow us on Twitter at OutDrankU. And again, you can email the show, odtcshow@gmail.com. Until next time, he's intern Noe the Pro Drunk. I am Terry Bennett. And this has been OutDrank The Coverage Happy Hour.